In this video, I'd like to go through some of the content management and scheduling features that Social Estate can provide to real estate groups and also to large boutique offices. So, what you can see in front of you at the moment is a social media calendar. If you've worked with social media publishing tools in the past, you're probably familiar with the calendar view and the ability to see posts past, present, and future, and to coordinate when those posts are published to social media. Now, before I go into detail about this and explain the benefits of using Social Estate versus many other platforms, what I'd like to do is start with the content library, because everything we do in the content library will make the social media piece that much clearer when we come to discussing it. Okay, so one of the key differences between Social Estate and every other social media publishing platform on the market is that we are all about real estate. We don't work with any other businesses except real estate businesses. And the benefits of that mean that we can integrate with a number of CRMs and do some other very sophisticated things that are real estate centric. So what you're looking at here is a content library, and this is like a warehouse for either an office, an agent, or a group. And this is where they can store and manage all the content that they may use in their social media and perhaps paid advertising campaigns. So what you can see is here we keep all the typical property types: for sale, sold, for lease, leased. And what that means is that all the properties are here for use in either social media marketing or in promotion. Um, Officers can make decisions about the content here, so they can decide, look, this content I don't want to have it published ever for whatever reason, and they can disable it. Things can also be deleted and edited. There's the ability to just search for listings by keywords. So it makes the management of content very easy. And the other part of it is too that if something isn't in your content library and you'd like to add it to your content library, then you can just select add. And that may be the case with things like testimonials. It may be the case with other content that an office has that isn't necessarily available online. Now, with things like testimonials, and this is something I'd like to just briefly go over, is that testimonials can be added to the content library by a number of ways. One of them is manual, so they can be manually entered, but the most common method is to connect them to your review platforms, and those may be things like Rate My Agent, they may be things like Trustpilot, they may be things such as Google reviews, they may be Facebook reviews. So what Social Estate will do is allow you to bring all of those reviews together into your social media, into your content library for use in your social media schedules, but also to turn them into promoted campaigns. As you can see, there can be a huge number of these. And again, the ability to decide whether or not testimonials are ever used is completely up to the individual if they want to make those decisions. Generally, this sort of area is really only here for a review, and you'll find that officers and agents never really need to come in here because the system is very clever in the way that it will select content for use in the promotional material. Okay, so this covers off the basics of what an office would expect to see or an individual would expect to see. What I'd like to look at now is, so for a group scenario. So we find that with a real estate group with a significant number of offices, their needs are very different from the individual offices, as you'd expect. And a key part of that is that they're either producing content in-house for seasonal marketing campaigns, they're running a content marketing strategy, they're also running lead generation campaigns on behalf of offices or to help offices generate more leads and inquiries. And all this information needs to be stored somewhere. It needs to be tagged appropriately so that we can make decisions about how it should be used, what channels it should be used in, what locations it's suitable for, so that the right content can be given to the right officers at the right time. So what the content library allows you to do is effectively add all your content in here. You can tag it, you can name it, you can add metadata to it, and the system will then work out who should get it, when they should get it. As you can see, we have things in here like calls to action. So these may be graphics that have been created in-house or templates that have been provided, and these CTAs can be generated. The same can be done for things such as motivational posts, memes. And what we have here is a really interesting section. This is where you would store things that are scheduled, and they can be posts for events that are coming out within the business. They can be events that are happening based on a seasonal campaign, or Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, so on and so forth. You can schedule content in here 12 months in advance. You can decide that I only want certain content to go out to a geographic location or a country, if you're doing, say, AU and NZ, or you can decide I just want this to a certain channel, this one to a certain channel. You can make other decisions about how the content should be used. The tagging can get very specific. You can tag content so that it's used right down to the suburb level. So what this means is that a head office marketing team can now look at all the initiatives that are coming up throughout the year. They can have graphics and posts prepared ahead of time, and they can then add them into this content library and set the appropriate schedule dates to have them posted. And the system will take care of that when it's then creating the weekly social media schedule for an individual office. It will add any of these time sensitive posts in. And this is a great way to stop having to send emails around to officers and marketing coordinators and then have them take the initiative to schedule it and publish it out. With this type of system, you can ensure that your marketing campaigns are being executed across hundreds, if not thousands, of social media profiles, exactly as and when you want them to be. Another really key part of what we do is that we have a downloadable section. So this is really handy when you've got officers that like to do a bit more themselves. They want a lot more flexibility in how and when they run their socials, and they don't mind getting involved in the process of scheduling content for themselves. But from here, you can provide an office with your entire collection of group and brand content for use in their social media schedules. They can download what they want, their suggested copy of how to use it, and they can then take that and do what they want with it. Right? So we've talked a bit about group content. What I'd also like to talk about is curated content. So curated content is where we find articles and information that are relevant to a business or an industry, but they're not really part of the brand. They're just there to supplement and fill gaps within a social media schedule. And it's part of that whole 80-20 rule where you want to, you don't want to be always talking about brand. You want to sometimes provide more generic, lighthearted content, but that's still helpful and still on topic. So what Social Estate allows you to do is tap into these content libraries of pre-curated content. Now that means that we can pull in hundreds and hundreds of articles each week. The articles are updated regularly and they're all based on seasonal variations. So summer articles in summer, winter in winter, spring, autumn, so on and so forth, Christmas and other events. So what happens here is that your officers will end up with some curated content in their schedules, and those will all be relevant to their areas because all of our content is tagged with a location. They're either given specific tags about a time of year, and that this tagging again can be done down to state, and it can be done down to channel, and it can be even done down to suburb if that's what's needed. Now, what that means is that the social state system will go through hundreds of pieces of content. It'll try and find content that's suitable for offices, areas, and suburbs and tag it appropriately. So, as a group, you really don't need to come in here and do anything at all. You can come in and make some decisions if you want. So, you can again disable content and say, look, this just isn't suitable, or I just don't like it. And that means it'll never be used in a schedule, and you can delete things. You can edit things, and you can also go to the link to review things as well. And we find this works really well where you've got a very small marketing team in head office, and they want to provide a really diverse mix and range of content to their teams. But at the same time, they don't want to spend a huge amount of time looking after it. As I said, we have a number of different sources. So these libraries come from a number of industry blogs, and some are more lighthearted, like things like Urban List. So you get more cultural, more food. This is more Homes to Love. So this is more about interior design. It's more about property and real estate. Now, what that means is that even with the fact that we're pulling in curated content, we can still also pull in your own blog content as well. And then that can also become a content source for agents and for offices and their social media schedules. So we can make much better use of group content. We can ensure that all articles that are generated and put out there are getting published, or we can make sure that only articles that are relevant to certain areas are getting published to the correct office pages. So we can provide very personalized social media schedules with a combination of office-based content, group content, curated content, and then the office can even incorporate their own content as well. And what this all does is it adds up to a huge time saving for your teams. Right, so now that we've been through the content library, we have a better understanding of where this information sits. What I'd like to talk to you about is the social media schedule. Now, the big key part of this is that this schedule you're looking at right now, along with all the graphics, along with all the different posts for the different channels, is all completely generated automatically for the office. So we have things in here like OFI times, which come directly from the CRM. So we get a complete listing of all their OFIs. Graphics can be tailored and customized to fit in with the brand. For sale listings can be scheduled for the office as well, and they all come complete with the correct hashtags and CTAs, and everything's group approved. This means that all your offices have a very uniformed approach to social media, but they still, if they really want, can go in here and make changes and edits to things to suit their own style. But they've got a really great place to start from. This is one of the scheduled articles, so you may have things like Lunar New Year that's coming up, and these are all scheduled well in advance. And as you can see, they're incorporated very organically into an office's social media schedule. As you can see, we've got group content in here, we've got office content in here, we've got curated content in here, and then we've got other posts as well. And all this, what this does is it gives a very authentic social media schedule with absolutely no time required by the office. Now, a lot of the time with this stuff, an office will want to do more for themselves. And a really powerful feature is the ability to just click on a date, and then they can go through all the content that they have access to, being personal and group. And they can then add additional listings to their schedule for themselves. They can add testimonials, they can add blogs, they can add new CTAs, they can add new lifestyle articles as and when they feel like it. And all of this can be available to them. Now, these schedules that are up here, these can be customized to suit the group's needs. So we can create one schedule for everybody using the platform. We can create maybe one for different states. We can create one for different seasons, or you can change them. You can have as many as you want. It's really up to you about what you decide is working for your social media strategy and how you want to structure your program. But what happens is that each week the system will just generate a schedule based on this. There's also the ability to have team member profiles in here so that staff can have posts published about them. And these staff profiles can also be turned into promotions if need be. Okay, so one thing I'd like to talk about here is some of the editing features for content. So the system we have allows you to categorize content with descriptive titles and body. It's very basic, very simple and easy to put content pieces together. The system's very clever and understands the social media channels that the content will be used in when it's used, and it can assemble your posts based on the nuances of that channel. And to do that, we just need to provide it with some basic information, such as, is there a link that we would like people to go to when the post is published, a descriptive title so that we can easily understand what it's about, and a suggested bit of copy so that we can provide a really good description for the post itself. Now, another really powerful feature that we have here is the ability to add merge tags. So like mail merge tags mean that you can insert pieces of dynamic information into your captions. And this is really handy where you've got, say, a generic call to action that's saying, "Look, click here to get listing appraisals." What this allows you to do is to personalize that caption based on some of the team or office's personal information. So you can include things such as the office's name, the office's email, a link to the website. You can provide a team member's name or an agent's name or mobile details so that when you're creating content, you can get really creative with how that ends up being published. Although it may be coming from the same piece, this system will allow you to customize it and personalize it for each individual office without doing any extra work. And that also means that when it comes time to refresh your library and make edits, you only have to change one piece of content and the entire network gets updated. There's some other really interesting features in here which I won't go into too much detail about, but we have an integration with a product called Unsplash. And what that means is that you can create high quality collections of images for specific categories. And then these images will be automatically used as the background images in the content when it's finally scheduled. And that's a really powerful feature. And with the combination of being able to provide dynamic copy and dynamic images, and then have graphics assembled for you on the fly into, again, dynamic schedules, you end up with one piece of content being able to serve hundreds of different social media profiles, but without looking like it's been copy and pasted or it's generic. They're all unique, they're all fresh, and it's constantly new visual imagery so that we're not recycling or reinventing things all the time. So, we've covered a huge amount of ground just in this video. There's a lot more features and a capability in the system that I think would be very beneficial to any business trying to run a number of social media profiles. And, as you can see here, we've done some work with First National, and we're running, hundreds of profiles across Australia and New Zealand for First National at the moment. And they've got a very small team that's managing this internally. And I think that it's a really good use case for what you may wish to do in the future.